What is food resupply like in Europe? Well, I've been fortunate enough to travel to Europe quite a few times over the last 10 years, and I've done several long trails. Most recently, I was lucky enough to do the Via Alpina trail, which is about a 2,200 kilometer trail that navigates the whole mountain range of the Alps, starting in Trieste, Italy, and going all the way across through 8 countries and eventually finishing at the Royal Palace in Monaco. So in this video, we're going to cover the 8 countries that I walked through on that hike and what the food resupply is like in them. If you want to hear about other countries, you can certainly ask me in the comments and I will answer them as they come. The 8 countries that I'm going to be talking about in this video are as follows: Italy, Slovenia, Austria, Liechtenstein, Germany, Switzerland, France, and Monaco.
Breakfast is 7 days and some coffee, and then I'm going to push off that direction and it goes up.
I would like to first clarify that I'm a U.S. citizen and things in the United States are a little bit different. So these are my thoughts as being a U.S. citizen. Once you get to Europe, you quickly realize that the food that you found on trail in the United States of America isn't readily available at shops. Unless you're going to a specific hiking store, you're not going to find backpacking meals or anything like that in your average Joe shops. So you have to get a little bit creative about your food. That doesn't mean that there isn't hiking like foods in the stores in the countries that you're going to hike through. It just means that it's not familiar to what you're used to, and you're going to have to just be a little bit more creative in your resupply and getting your calories and proteins so that you can stay in shape. You're not going to see any familiar brands. There is Knorr, which is very popular in Europe because that is a German/Dutch company, and I ate those Knorr dehydrated meals often. The downside is they're low in calories and they're not as cheap as things are in the United States. Generally, for one of those dehydrated Knorr meals, you could expect to pay €2 to €3, depending on the country that you were in. And like I said, it didn't provide as many calories as you would think. So sometimes I would have to double down on that, making my meals a little bit more expensive on the monetary side. But, you know, you need your calories, so you have to search for them. So what does a resupply in Europe really look like? So I always had some staple items in my backpack, and those items would include bread, meat, cheese, and olive oil. And I always made sandwiches, and so this helped me get in a lot of calories. Unfortunately, it's not the lightest food you could possibly carry, and it doesn't hold long, meaning cheese and meat go bad without refrigeration. So you have to keep that in mind while carrying it. Some other very common items that I carried in my backpack would be ramen and risotto. Generally speaking, if I wasn't in Italy, I was eating ramen. And if I ended up in Italy, I was eating risotto because they didn't sell ramen in any of the markets. For breakfast, I generally had cereal. The cereals in Europe are a little bit different, so I was able to get something similar to Cocoa Puffs or Smacks on a regular basis. Another item that I commonly had in my backpack was going to be muesli bars or granola breakfast bars, which are just a really quick and easy way to get some calories without stopping. Another item that I also carried was Snickers. I found Snickers regularly in the stores, and they generally had deals and discounts on them, so for that reason I carried them. In the entire time that I was in Europe, I only stumbled across Cliff Bars once, and they were priced at a staggering €7.50 per bar. Some of the other things I would eat would be granola bars. I would have some candy such as gummy bears and other things like that. Chips were common things that I was eating from time to time to get my calories. We're not wasting any camp gas. We're going to melt some snow, because why not? And I found some garbanzo beans with green beans, Beans, a magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you... Yay! The hardest part was really finding meals. And because of that, gas wasn't really a big thing to carry because I wasn't really using much gas because I wasn't cooking a lot of meals. There wasn't a lot of dehydrated meal options, and because of that, I didn't require as much gas. In fact, the same canister of gas that I brought with me to begin the hike is the same canister that I finished my hike in Monaco with. So that should tell you how much I cooked. I did cook on a daily basis, but I had a siphon that I was allowed to use that would transfer from one gas canister to the next. But there wasn't an absurdity of dehydrated meals that you could cook. They don't have individual packets or sachets of instant coffee. So that was another thing to consider. Whenever I was buying coffee, I was buying a large jar of it and then kind of had to find a bag and put that into. So they don't have all the individual sachets and packets like we do in the United States, such as Spam or the chicken of the sea packets or any of those tuna packets. Those weren't really readily available. If you did find fish or stuff like that, it was sardines, and they were in little aluminum tins, which don't really make it convenient for carrying on trail. Got some road candy here. Strawberries.
These are so good.
Yeah, these are great. Because the lack of familiar foods, American foods, this was an extremely healthy hike for me. As a person who has hiked a lot of miles in the United States of America and got used to that hiking style and how I feel and what I'm eating and what comes out of me, I certainly noticed a very big difference being in Europe. Eating much different foods allowed it to be a much healthier hike for me. Additionally to shopping in the markets, we found these places called Hofladens. This was more common in Switzerland than anything, but basically it was a farmer's market at the actual farm. So as you passed through the farm, there was a market you could purchase anything that they were growing or making on their farm. And I often grabbed eggs because you could buy them individual and I could throw those into a ramen and they made a heck of a lot of difference to the flavor and nutrients. In addition to eggs and cheese, I would also purchase yogurt from these places.
Yep, made it to Linthal, had some breakfast here. Got a nectarine, tomato, some bread, yogurt, and then push on. There's a child.
We got milk. We got peanuts.
Probably one of my favorite things while hiking in Europe is the lack of food that I need to carry. Because of the frequency of markets, towns, refuge, hutes, and all that good stuff, Hofladens, there's always food to be purchased fresh. So I would plan strategically and accordingly to arrive into a town for a meal, and that way I would have a fresh meal. Whether it be breakfast, I'd go to a market and have fresh fruit and fresh yogurt, or if it was lunch, I would arrive in a town and I would get fresh pizza or something like that in order to save weight. But there were parts of this trail where I did need to carry quite a bit of food. So let's go over those sections. So what sections of the trail and what stages were lacking of markets? So the first sections that did not have many markets was on the Cornish High Route, which is the KHW or the Peace Trail. And that started at stage R16 and went to R26. There were 0 market through all these stages. There was one ski resort in Nosfeld, but because it's a ski resort, everything was closed and nothing was open, so therefore there was no markets open. Additionally to that section was Italy. So essentially the Piedmont area all the way south. So from stages R131 to essentially the end in R161. So from Mount Dauphin all the way south. There was very few markets. There were alimentaries, which are very small, and they don't have a lot of options. They definitely have risotto because it's Italy, but there's not that much of options in them, and they were few and far between. So for those sections, I had to carry a lot more food, and I had to be extremely strategic of where and when I was going to eat out.
Well, this is going to be interesting. This store had literally next to nothing, bread, and I got 2 dinners and some snacks. So I don't really know what to do. I guess I'm going to be buying a lot of meals in Italy, because I think it's like 140K to the next market.
Compared to the United States of America, 140K without a food resupply really isn't that big of a deal. But getting so used to the short distances here in Europe made this very difficult, and the lack of supplies at the stores that you did find made it even more difficult. In order to save as much money as possible, I chose to purchase steaks, eggs, and other goods in the markets myself, and then cook them myself on fireplaces or campgrounds or campsites that could be sporadically located throughout Europe, most commonly found in Switzerland and in France. I hope that this video helps you out on your European travels and in your thru hikes in Europe. As some may not know what to expect, hopefully this video can tell you a little bit of what you can possibly expect on the road. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you stuck through it all the way up to this point, it's greatly appreciated. I'm on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate you to hit that like and subscribe button if you can, or share it with a friend if you want. This year I'll be headed back to Europe, where I'll be going back to Slovenia and Italy to go to some favorite parts that I liked. I will be hiking the Slovenia Mountain Trail, which is roughly a 500-kilometer trail that's just in Slovenia, going over 30 of the highest peaks in Slovenia. And then I'll be heading over to Italy and doing some Alta Via hikes, which are in the Dolomites. So if that's stuff that you want to see in the future, please get that notifications on so that way it can update you as I post, guys. Thank you once again. This is Cav saying out to the next time. Keep calm and hike on, guys. Peace.